morning. My name is Don Patafio, P-A-T-A-F-I-O. I'm a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. My employee number is 114-7898. I am today interviewing Mr. John F. Greaney, G-R-E-A-N-E-Y, who is a World War II combat veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard. His service number was 648-983. And this interview is being done for the Library of Congress Veterans History Program. This interview is taking place in Amityville, New York, 11701, and today's date is April 5, 2005. Good morning, Jack. As you know, we are conducting this interview for the Library of Congress, and we're going to be talking a little bit about your World War II experiences. I want to take you back first to where you were in terms of your life immediately before World War II. We're talking about back in 1940-41, in that period, and as I understand it, you were living in Freeport. Is that correct?
That's right, Donald.
And you went to Freeport High School.
Right.
And tell us about your siblings, your family. You have two brothers that I'm aware of.
Two brothers, James and William, and two sisters, Lillian and Mary.
You're the oldest child in the family?
The oldest of five.
Right. Okay, and immediately before the war, you were going to Freeport High School?
Just before the war, I was working at Republic Aircraft. And I had graduated high school, naturally, and I started working at Republic as a defense worker.
And your family lived in Freeport, your father had a tavern?
A bar and grill. And,
right, and your family had a boat. You were boating oriented, right?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of boat did your father have?
Just a small bay boat, skiff.
And you and your brother spent a lot of time on a bed.
We spent a lot of time clamming and crabbing.
So you were what we used to call bay rats, right?
Yeah, bay whackers. Yeah.
Okay, now World War II comes along, and your inclination is to get to be part of this whole thing, right?
Right.
And I understand that you and your two brothers decided to try and join the Navy. Would you tell us what happened then?
All right. We decided to join the Navy together. And but the worst thing was I quit my job and then decided to join the Navy together. Just taking for granted that they were going to take us. So we went down to Broadway, I think it was at that time, and took the physical, sign up, and lo and behold, I flunked the physical, and my other next brother, Jamie, next to the line, he flunked the physical. I'd already been shot. I had a hunting accident when I was a kid, so when I stopped to think about it, it incapacitated me to an extent. But I adjusted over the years and got along fine, and just never took it as a handicap.
You never thought of yourself?
No, I never thought of it, even though I had to adjust to it. And my brother Jamie, I think he had a punctured eardrum and a hernia, and they didn't want him. So they took my youngest brother, William, or Billy, and he was really too young to join. We talked my mother and father into signing what they call the minority crews in those days. I don't know what the real technical name would be. Anyway, it was that they were allowing him to join even though he was too young. So he joined and went off and joined the Navy, and my mother and father had a fit when we came home. What do you mean you failed? They taken Billy. Well, they took Billy, and then as time went on, we really didn't know what to do. I tried to get in the Army Air Corps, and I flunked that. And then I remember there was a point in time, it was 1943, 42 rather, that Marty Fisher, he was the head of the Freeport Boatmen's Association, and they had docks and everything on Woodcliff Avenue where they different people in town tied up their boats. And he was organizing what at that time they called the Temporary Reserve.
Coast Guard temporary.
Coast Guard Temporary Reserve. And of course we were all excited because we heard we could go down and see Marty Fisher and sign up into this Coast Guard Temporary Reserve. So Jamie and I dashed down there and signed up along with some of the other fellows that I went to high school with that had flunked a physical for color blindness and some other simple trait. And then we
Did you
joined
have to
up.
take a physical for?
No, there was no physical or anything at that time. In fact, they were taking handicap guys. One of the guys that I knew had joined the Temporary Reserve, and he had one bad eye. He only saw out of one eye. So, and there was other fellows I met that were handicapped for various reasons, a game leg, or and so on and so forth. But we signed up, and I was immediately stationed or assigned to.
Excuse me, before you get to that, what were they looking for? Were they looking for anybody or just people with some nautical skills?
Geez, I really don't know, but I would think that being like the guy was head of the Freeport Boatmen's Association, he would know fellas that worked on boats or had a boat or a skiff,
Okay.
how to tie a few knots or
Continue.
something. You didn't come from Nebraska or Oklahoma.
Yeah. When you volunteered, you were given uniforms, correct?
We were given uniforms and a number, and we were assigned to different
Right.
different
Were you given-
boats.
Were you given rates, ranking?
Seaman first.
Pretty much everybody.
Yeah, pretty much everybody was seaman first. And the one thing now, I had no training. They gave me no training at all. I was assigned to
No
a
boot
boat.
camp, no boot camp
no
of any
nothing,
kind.
no nothing. And I was assigned to a boat or a group of boats in Manasquan, New Jersey, Manasquan Inlet Coast Guard Station. Now the other fellows, my brother Jamie and some of the other fellows we knew, they were assigned to Montauk. But I understand they,
Greenport, was it?
Montauk, New York.
No, was it Greenport? Wasn't it Greenport?
I'm sorry, yeah, you're right, Greenport, Greenport, and they were assigned to a sailboat flotilla that they had out there. The idea, and where I went in Jersey was, they were all power boats. They were yachts that were commandeered by the Coast Guard from people that offered them for, or they could take them anyway, I guess. And they were using them for patrols offshore. And the idea in that time was we didn't have all the Ds and all the other patrol vessels, and all they wanted was a screw turning in the water so the submarine would pick it up on their sound gear, I guess, and give you a wide berth. And that was the idea that we enlisted for, but didn't realize it was only going to be a temporary thing.
Right. So this was a civilian boat, and you were basically civilians,
Right.
right? Now, who was in command of this boat?
Well,
I mean, his name, was he an active duty guy, or was he a civilian
no,
as
it was
well?
just they were all temporary reserves. The fellas, the whole crew, come to think of, the guy that ran the boat, and what you had, like on a lot of occasions, like the boat I was on, was run by the guy that owned it. And he was an older gent who wouldn't have been accepted in the regular Coast Guard Reserve. But nevertheless, for this particular situation, he was assigned and uniformed, and he ran his boat. We patrolled offshore, we were designated or allotted a designated grid that we patrolled for a few days at a time and then came in. But the main idea was just to have somebody out there, as small as we were, to keep the German subs, which were pretty heavy on the east coast of Long Island, of the United States at that time.
Now you lived aboard the boat?
Right.
And how about meals? Did you have somebody assigned with duty as a chef or
We all
cook
took turns, and we ate a lot of lobster.
All right.
The lobstermen would see us offshore, and they go by and throw us a bag. So you always had a pot of lobsters on the stove.
Now you guys were paid, right?
Right.
Were you paid the equivalent of a seaman first active duty?
To my knowledge, yes.
Okay. All right. And tell us about what a typical patrol would be for you. What exactly you would go out for a couple of days at a time?
Right.
Okay.
We go out for a couple or a few days, depending upon the weather and the fuel. And we took turns on watch, watching for submarines, and also like there were ships being sunk up and down the coast at that time, and you picked up bodies and stripped them, took out their identification, and sprayed them with formaldehyde and bagged them for delivery on the beach. It was mostly just being there and picking up whatever we could from some of the ships that were sunk.
Okay, and I'm asking these questions because most people aren't familiar with this part of World War II history, the Temporary Reserve, and what you guys did. So, did you, the specific assignment you had aboard the boat, your captain or your coxswain kind of delegated who's who, predicated on what your experience was, for instance? Like, if you were mechanical, you would be a motor mechanic, and is that the way it kind of worked?
Not really.
Or you all
Not
shifted
really.
around?
We just there was on the boat I was on. There were 4 of us, if I remember right, and that wasn't a very big boat, and we used to take turns on 4-hour watches,
Right.
or if we wanted to adjust it to 2-hour watches, we would do. But there was always somebody on watch, and there would be cleaning up to do and cooking, and we all took turns. Everybody took a chance,
Okay.
took a turn.
So it wasn't like a typical where
No, not like on a
deck
ship.
assignment or an
no,
engine assignment.
no.
Okay. But you had now as a volunteer, your commitment to the Coast Guard was completely voluntary. If you wanted to just say, I had enough of this and I wanted to go home, you could have went home, right? Or no?
I never tried, or I never knew anybody that did it.
But
so
you
I
didn't
really
sign
don't-
any
No,
commitment of any kind, right?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. Any particularly notable missions that you went on that you remember that were something unusual
well, the
or
Temporary
dramatic
Reserve?
happened? Well, while you were on that boat.
No, I guess the most dramatic thing, if you can call it dramatic, was maybe picking up some of the bodies from the ships that were sunk, and of course most of the ships were sunk with tankers, and they were all carrying Bunker C, which is like tar. It was kind of tough to handle them because they'd been bobbing around in the tar for a few days, so you really didn't know you had a body until you scraped off some of the tar and everything that was built up on it. But nothing astonishing ever.
So, how long were you on this boat?
I guess about 7. Like I started in July, and they tried to shut it down, or they did shut it down in March of '43. I started in July of '42, and they shut it down in March of '43.
Now, in March of '43, they gave you an option of going active duty. Is that kind of how it worked?
No, well, personally with me, no. I was finished. and I argued with the guy that was telling me I was fired, and told him that I wanted to stay, and I argued and said I'm doing everything, been doing everything that I would be doing if I was on a ship. So I couldn't understand. Anyway, make a long story short, the guy finally said, "All right, we'll give you a quick physical." And I hopped on one leg and coughed and passed the physical. And then they accepted me, and
Now, accepted you into
the Coast Guard Reserve,
Right.
regular
regular
reserve.
reserve,
Yeah.
right. And the reason that we use the term you were fired, you weren't fired,
No,
I mean,
no,
what they were
Released.
saying is that you're no longer
required.
required, right, okay. All right, so now at this point, you had an opportunity to not stay on necessarily on this boat, but to get a new assignment, right?
Right.
And that was where?
Well, because of my background in the Republic Aircraft, they transferred me to Floyd Bennett, which I wanted to go to sea, and I didn't I didn't stay at Floyd Bennett too long because we managed to get into enough trouble to get sent out to sea.
So you engineered the fact that they would punish you by assigning you to
He was gonna, the head cook was gonna fix us. This other friend of mine and I decided we wanted to go to sea. And besides, we were too near home anyway. And
a lot of people would have thought that that was a wonderful billet to have,
yeah,
but you wanted to do your part.
yeah, I wanted to see the
Now,
world. And,
What was your assignment at Floyd Bennett? What were you doing there?
we used to launch the flying boats for patrol early in the morning, and then beach them at night. And we used to don wetsuits because the flying boats they had there had removable gear. So when you taxied the flying boat into the water, you had to go into the water with wetsuits and remove the wheels with the undercarriage so they could taxi away and go on patrol. And then when they returned, we would go back in and put the wheels back on, and so they could.
Okay, so you engineered your reassignment out of there, and you went now to, what was your next assignment?
Floyd Bennett. Well, when we engineered our reassignment, we were punished. We were sent to the docks over in Staten Island to board a Corvette, the Intensity. It was a Canadian Corvette. In fact, it was only built. It was only about a year old. It was built up in Canada, up in Quebec. Anyway, we went on that ship and we did.
But at that time, it was a Coast Guard vessel. Is that
Coast
correct?
Guard, right? It was a PG gunboat. They used to we referred to them, but they were Corvettes, English or Canadian style. And we did coastal convoys at that time. We ran everywhere up and down the East Coast from the Panama Canal to Boston and a little bit north of that.
And your rank at this point was?
Seaman, apprentice seaman.
You were apprentice seaman.
Yeah, I'm sorry, seaman first.
Seaman first. So you had the same rank as you
Yeah,
did.
right. Yeah, they carried over the same rank.
Yeah.
I think, right. And then we did the coastal convoys, and actually we were taking the place of the temporary reserve boats that we had that they'd dismissed or released.
Okay. My understanding of Corvettes where they were pretty awful riding vessels. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, it was like
They rolled around all over the place.
bathtub around bottom. They were tough on the crew, and they were just tough to handle and watch on too, because you could get thrown overboard so easily. But they were good. They did the job, and they worked well. And as soon as they put the Corvettes in, and then they were starting to make DEs too, and it cut down the amount of sinkings. when we used to run the patrol, we ran into a fair amount of submarine activity. And like everybody realizes too, like with submarines, like you can never really say you got one, because nobody knows what you left down there. But different times when we did make runs, there were times that we really felt as though we got one. This time there'd be a big belch of oil and different stuff coming to the surface, and it was tough duty under the water, and I guess we made it tough for them at that time. It was an interesting foray up and down the East Coast chasing submarines.
Now, did you have radar aboard at that time?
Gee, I'm not sure,
Okay.
because I wasn't involved with the
Was
radar.
station keeping particularly a problem? Keeping station on in your convoy position?
No, that wasn't too much. When it did get rough, real rough, you spread out. You spread out, and I do remember one time when we had a pretty big convoy going up and down the coast. We had a submarine. We picked up a submarine, and the submarine ends up under the convoy. And we were going in between the convoy, getting them to move ships out, because you couldn't drop a pad in amongst the Liberty ships. They just started cracking, and the next thing you know, we spent half a day or more trying to get this rabbit out from under the bush.
Yeah.
And finally, next thing you know, he would disappear. So not even anything laid on him, but it was exciting at that time.
Okay, approximately how long were you aboard the Intensity?
I guess I left the Intensity in February '44, so that would have been major, so almost 9 months or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from that you went to?
I went to an ordnance school. I had applied for
Gunnery School.
I applied to be a gunner's mate,
Yeah.
and with that you would go to gunnery school. And they picked me for gunnery school, and then I went down to St. Augustine, Florida, the old Ponce de Leon Hotel, which is now, I think, a college, a junior college. And I went to school there for about 6 months, and graduated as a gunner's mate. And after I graduated from ordnance school, I ended up on the Taney. That was in June of '44.
Okay, and we're talking about the Coast Guard cutter Taney, Taney.
Roger B. Taney.
Right. Yes. This was a secretary class cutter.
Yeah, with one of the
Right. One of the larger
one
ones.
of the bigger cutters.
Okay, now you went aboard as a gunner's mate.
I went aboard as a third-class gunner's mate, and of course it was a lot different than the Corvette. The Corvette only had a 3-inch 50, and well, actually the Taney was the most heavily armed Coast Guard cutter. There was none of them were ever armed. We had 4 5-inch 38 turrets, plus the 40s and 20s, and of course the depth charges and hedgehogs, etc. But we were the only one that had that much armament on it.
And your duty aboard here was still convoy work, right? You were still
Yeah, it was still.
but
well,
you were doing transatlantic convoys
we were
now?
doing convoy across the Atlantic into the Mediterranean, and that was interesting. when you went over across there, you still had the German submarines over there. They were hot and heavy because they knew there was a VE day coming, and they were very active. And when we would go through by the Rock of Gibraltar, there'd be a German plane over our head out of range, of course, taking pictures of the convoy, so they know what they were going to go after that night. And then, but in the interim, as soon as the plane went away, in fact, the detainee that I was on we were the convoy commodore. We led the man of war and adjusted the ship's position in convoy depending upon the need. And we changed the locations of different ships at night, set up preparation for making smoke. Making smoke was a great thing because you laid out a pretty good pattern on the convoys, and it made it a little more difficulty for them to find the ships. In fact, one time when we had a convoy going through, we were laying out smoke, and some of the ships, they must have been English ships, I guess, because they were putting up barrage balloons. And of course, we didn't want barrage balloons up because what you had, he was saying, look, I'm here.
Right.
So we ended up shooting down the barrage balloons.
How'd they feel about that?
Yeah, they were a little ticked off, yeah, we were ruining their barrage balloons. And then that night, we'd get attacked, torpedo planes or submarines, or sometimes, depending upon what was around at that particular time. And a lot of ships went down, a lot of men got lost.
Before you were moved over to the Pacific Theater, about how many crossings do you think you made on a Taney?
I think two or three.
Yeah.
And they were always
exciting.
there was always some action going on.
Right.
And,
Always something.
and then when we used to pull into Bizerte, Tunisia, tie up for a couple of days until we got a convoy together to return to the States, and then we would
Escort them back.
escort them back.
Now, was there more, or was the German Navy more anxious to get you guys going eastbound because you were bringing supplies over, or was it just as dangerous coming westbound?
No, I think it was definitely more going east, because they knew we were cooking up something, and they were nice. With all the stuff they knew, they still didn't know where we were going to land for sure. But they did know that we were bringing a lot of equipment and stuff over too, manpower, men, food, supplies, fuel.
Any particular experiences come out in your memory about that period?
Just I think one of the ships that I'm not sure whether it was carrying fuel or munitions, but all I know is it took a fish and it blew up one big puff, black and night, and they lost about, I guess, 550 guys in one fell swoop. But the ironic thing was, I don't know why they were doing it, but they were, about 400 of them were trained technicians sent over, and they sent them over on a
troop ship?
Yeah, they should have been on a troop ship. They wouldn't have down like that. But they put them on an explosive vehicle. But I guess that was the only room they had, you know.
Yeah.
For all I know, maybe all the troop ships were gone by then too. I don't know.
Did you get involved a lot in search and rescue during those?
During that time, you couldn't get involved too much, because if you belabored your course to any extent to make rescues, you got torpedoed, and it was a tough
tough time.
a tough thing. leave guys in the water and everything, but I guess they learned early in the war that once you slow down to pick up, you're an ideal target for the fish.
Okay, now there came a time when the Taney was recalled back to the States and re-outfitted, right?
Right, that was the end of 4.